to say more about living.
Yeah, I think we're ready. I need to put my glasses on. I need to be able to see. All right, it is 9:01. We're good. I'd like to call the meeting Public Services and Facilities Committee meeting, Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. Call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. First thing on the agenda is citizens' comments.
Mr. Streetman signed up first, but I don't see him yet, so Ms. Nestler is on the docket next.
Ms. Nestler.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear.
You get to go first.
I'm sorry?
You get to go first
Yeah.
for being on time.
All right. Sorry to be crowding your space
No, you're
here.
fine.
Okay.
You're fine.
All right, this is, I'd like to address something for the rec department. Last year, our family donated a life ring for our city dock for the safety of all its users. Living on an island and being surrounded by water, it's imperative that we remain proactive in the name of public safety. In that spirit, I would like to continue to empower our community, our island children, in taking water safety one step further. Education on what I propose is currently being implemented up and down the coast, with the most recent educational program being taught at the Joshua Murray Water Safety Center in North Carolina. Continuing my efforts, I would like to propose an activity, proper execution of usage of a life ring implemented during our summer camps at the rec center. A ring toss activity of sort. I am, for the record, willing to cover all costs for this summer educational series. It would not cost the city a cent and would be a valuable staple for our island children. If for some reason you don't want residents' donation, then I can connect you with resources, sponsorships to further advance on. With the Devoted Float, a nonprofit being endorsed by West Marine, Coast Guard, and other entities having the support nationwide, there are programs out there that can make it happen. Even the Lens program would be an option, possibly, for financing it, if you didn't want my donation. As the life ring I donated was dedicated in honor of our fire department and police department for public safety. Either way, I think it would be a valued activity for our summer camps. The format is in place and sponsorship, is available. And in closing, first things first, I have pictures to share with you. Here you will see pictures of the life rings on our dock taken at 8 a.m. this morning. Neither one of them, in their current state, is set up to save a life when seconds matter. So, just one more box to check for the safety of our island. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Here are the pictures.
Thanks.
Desiree?
Yeah. Hey, good morning. Welcome. So,
How you doing, Rob?
I believe we had one more speaker, but he has not made it in time. So I guess we'll just move on. Let's see, approval of previous meeting minutes from July 9th.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. First thing on old business is discussion and consideration of commercial bulk container services. And we have Rod Turnage here to speak on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for coming. Desiree, do we want to
Sure.
take it away?
Just to give a little bit of context to where we are, back in July, the city received a notice from our current vendor that collects garbage from all the bulk containers on the island that service both commercial businesses and condominiums in our community, indicating that the price that we have enjoyed for multiple decades was going to go up. The company was, I think, bought by a different company, so they were reviewing all existing vendors and clients, and we received that. As soon as the city received that notice, We issued a request for bids to get additional bids from other vendors. We received those bids back, and they range between $250 and $375 per ton. So that's how they charge the service of collecting garbage from these dumpsters. We've had this conversation with this committee in the past and with council. This committee recommended extending the existing contractor through February. We had a 6-month and a 12-month option. City council decided to exercise the option to extend it for 6 months and allow the committee and the business community to develop a plan of how to handle commercial bulk container after that time. When we issued the first request for bids, we issued the scope of work was the same scope of work that we have been providing for many, many years. Just so that we had a full picture of what our options were, we issued a second request for bids to know what the cost per ton would be. Per yard, the cost per yard would be if the city decided to only provide this service and pay for the service for condominiums, and see how much that would change. The price didn't change dramatically. It was still between $250 and $375 per ton, so not a whole lot of
75 or
difference.
275?
Two,
375.
yes, $375, which is what the city's paying currently through February. So that's where we are. We have a guaranteed continued service and collection service through February, island-wide, including condos and commercial businesses, but we need direction from council on a policy decision whether or not the city is going to continue to pay for the services for our commercial operations on the island. So that's kind of where we are. There's a lot of interest in making sure that our commercial entities are represented in the conversation. Had multiple conversations with Rod Turnage, who currently serves as the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and felt like that was an appropriate first step, having a voice that can represent and make sure that their needs and desires are heard in this conversation. So that's where we are. We need direction and conversation about what the city does after February. And I do want to make sure that I mentioned this. I know we've mentioned it before. The contract that we currently have is through February. If we change vendors, which we will likely do, whether we have the same scope or a reduced scope, because there are other companies that had lower bid, a lower price per yard than the current vendor, we need to give at least 2 months' notice, because those companies own the garbage containers. So those would need to be, there'll be a transition between the current vendor and a different vendor. And a new vendor may need additional time to order and receive new containers to be placed on the island. So while we have through February, a decision needs to be made sooner rather than later so that we don't miss that transitional period.
And just for context, for everybody that does watch for the table here too, we went from what, roughly 70,000 to 200, is it 288 or 250? Or it's a 200 and some odd, it's over $200,000 that we're.
Correct. The city had been paying around 70 to 75,000 a year. Again, it depends on the frequency. So years where we had a lot of activity and the garbage cans, the bulk containers were collected more frequently, that increased the cost. But we went from a price per yard of about 75 cents to $375 is where we are today. The lowest bid is $250 that we can secure. So it's at least 3 times, if not a little bit more, what we're paying currently.
What is the timing for that $250 bid? Like, if we wanted to secure the $2.50, which is considerably cheaper than the $3.75 that we're paying, when would we need to do that, or could we?
It's within the month.
This month?
Correct. We know that the new contractor knows that we would be entering into a contract that starts in February.
That gives them the runway.
Correct.
So the desire would be to make a decision this month.
Correct.
Okay.
But to clarify,
Use
We're
the
on-
mic. Oh, God.
we're under contract for 6 months on the short term.
At the 370.
So
Yes,
we
ma'am.
would not,
We can't exit.
Correct, yes. Any changes that we do
starting-
would be,
But starting in February, we could get it down to 250 starting in February
yes, ma'am,
if we act soon.
correct.
Okay.
Have we had any conversations with our current vendor about the 250?
Well, everybody who bid, has a bid tab and knows what,
What the others bid.
correct.
So is it inappropriate in government to go to the existing vendor and go, you want to match it?
Yeah, there are requirements under the city code when we do bids. You're not required to use a low bid. You have to obviously demonstrate that they have the capacity to.
That's not the question.
We cannot negotiate with a high bid.
But could we do, maybe to your point, Blair, can you put it back out to say, hey, we want a best and final from everybody? You'd have to put it
We've
back
done
out
it
to everybody.
twice now.
Okay.
So that's it. That's their best and final.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
That's a big difference.
Sounds like they don't want the business or something.
So, I feel like we've talked about this a lot. And the fact that we're one of the few cities that does this, the things that concern me are, that jump to my mind are when you look at this list and, you see what we're paying for. And, the kangaroo, the county park. All these business entities that the residents are paying for their trash. And then I keep going back to the environmental side of things and the fact that we're not giving any incentive to the businesses to use less waste. I've noticed some businesses you go to and you eat in and you're given, if you're not getting it to go, they do give you a plate and a reusable plate, and then others just trash, and no recycling bins, and so I just feel like it's time for a change. And the city the residents don't need to be paying for the business's trash consumption. So that's my thought. I know it's a change. We've been doing it the other way for a long time, but not really for any, nobody's been able to kind of explain why. It's just something that we've done. And so here we are, faced with this very large jump in price and just money that the city needs to, figure out a way to not be funding. So that's my thoughts.
I'd
Rod?
like to see what Donnie has to say, since he's the professional here, about it all, and what Rod has to say about it.
go first.
Right. No, we need that.
So I know that the chamber's position is we just need to be very thoughtful in how we communicate it. I've had some conversations with a number of you. Desiree and I've met twice. And I think for the most part, what I'm feeling and hearing from the business community is they most understand the situation. Most understand how we likely got here, although we don't have all the facts. So, the ones I've spoken with that are acceptable to what may come their way, they see it as a cost of doing business. Now, there are some that are grumbling. I don't know that I'm in a position to have an opinion on what we should do. The only thing that I have kind of recommended, and it doesn't sound like it may be possible, is that you lighten the load. You don't pull the rug from underneath them. You give them some time to prepare their budgets, and maybe tier this thing in, right? So if there's if there's a big differential, if there's a way to, tear it down, you were putting in 70, well, first year put in 60, second year put in 45, 35, tear it down so that it doesn't sting in one year. But, I think that how we communicate it to the business community and the manner we communicate it, no matter where we land, is going to be important, because it does seem like, something that needs to be addressed.
How would you differentiate types of businesses? Because on the island, we have rentals that are, for the most part, businesses because of their size and the number of trash cans and the amount of trash they generate. So I got just an issue. I don't know how to differentiate between those. If you're going to treat all businesses the same, and this isn't a summer home that's rented sometimes, it's an actual rental business, should they be treated the same way as businesses? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't either. Most of my conversations have been with restaurants. And quite candidly, some of them had a good year, but their profits their sales are up versus last year, but their profits are not. And some, made it through the busy season, and who knows, right? So my perspective is going to be on the food and bev. I don't see it colliding with short-term rental sector unless we talk about condos. And when I look down the condos, I just, I don't know. You want to comment on
No, go
that,
ahead.
Scott? I just, my research has been mostly with food and bev because those are the ones that are going to be hit the hardest, in my opinion. And I just, on the condo side, I mean, those are just, beer prices are going to go up, burger prices are going to go up, and regime prices are going to go up.
Well,
That's just, they'll get it somewhere.
There's a restaurant in Mount Pleasant that crab cakes are now $55.
Yeah.
All lump crab meat or mostly jelly?
Better be a lot of crowd. Not a lot of filler in that one. I mean, I do, and I don't know if Donnie or somebody mentioned one of the times when we were talking about this, that it had been brought up, to have a limit for the pull carts. If you have, 2 or 3 or whatever pull carts per, because I think, isn't it, if you're even for restaurants or any businesses, if you can accommodate your trash in 2 pull carts, you don't have to use
Correct.
you're fine.
Correct.
Basically, you can just use the pull cart just like a resident. And I kind of feel like it's weird that we have that restriction or, for F&B, but we don't have that for some of these houses. And I believe, Donnie, did you say there's some houses that have like 20,
16.
16?
Yes.
That's a lot.
I mean, I can give you some specifics, and it's,
Are they full?
in the summer, 622 Ocean Boulevard you'll have those cans out there.
I mean, that's kind of insane.
Well, Palm or Ocean. Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
just one example. As these houses get taller, because we're not getting bigger out, but we're certainly getting taller, it's morphed into a lot of your vacation-type homes have 8 and 10 cans. That's normal.
And that has been discussed in the past, whether or not the city, for rental property or any property that has more than 2 cans, whether or not the city should charge sort of a tax.
Is that a conversation for another day?
I think that's a different conversation. It has been brought up before, just because, it just takes 4 or 5 times the amount of time that a normal, maybe a house with 1 or 2 cans would.
well, I guess the reason that I think it kind of applies here is that if we're going to treat, as Blair's saying, one business, it seems somewhat unfair to, to treat 2 businesses differently.
They're not covered by this contract, though, that we're looking at.
But they're
I
not,
think.
that's true.
And maybe that is a conversation we should have for another day.
It might, they might get on that contract.
Yeah, really.
Well, and that's another, yeah, I mean, that might be something also that
Yeah.
that somebody with 16 cans
So-
probably needs a better way of disposing of their trash.
If I'm kind of understanding the summary, though, we're at 70 now, we're going, even if we do the condos, our cost, the city cost is going to go up to about $100,000. So we're going to see a 40-some-odd% increase. And there was another really, I thought, good schedule that you had in the PowerPoint presentation that kind of showed from a perspective of where the costs are being driven. I think to Rod's point, maybe some of the smaller restaurants are going to feel it more than some of the larger, but, 60-70% of the commercial cost is associated with, over 50 of it is the resort. And then you've got the marina is another big chunk. And then we've got, some of the large scale, you got the liquor stores and some of the other large things that are, really generating the bulk of the cost. I think when we talked about the front beach, the difference in, if you aggregate the 10 members of the compactor, their costs are going to go up roughly $1,700 a month. I think it's $1,700 or $1,800 a month. So it seems like where the pain points, if you annualize that, there's a $20,000 challenge there that's got to be spread out amongst those. And I think if we kind of chip it away, maybe there's a way we extend the runway. I mean, we're talking at the end of the year, maybe we go into February, maybe we go into March, maybe there's some way to give the, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to how you delineate, and I don't even know if we can segregate between businesses without treating them all equally one way or the other. But I guess, when you boil it down, I think most of these large businesses, to your point, are saying, hey, it's cost of doing business. It's been nice, but we can take it on. So I'm kind of where Katie is though too, and I don't know, Blair, it sounds like you might be there, or we're all kind of there. It's probably, the city can't absorb that extra 200. We're gonna absorb greater cost even with the model we're proposing, but we've got to have a communicated and a runway. Personally, I don't think it's years. I think it's maybe, I don't know how we extend it through February or whatever when that contract goes or what have you, but.
Is it possible to do that? I mean, could we say, if we wanted to secure the less expensive contract, starting in February, would it be possible to have the businesses as part of that for another couple months, or is that a possibility? Or would that company not be willing to do that because they know if they knew it was gonna be just for a short period of time?
I think the challenge, we can have that conversation with them. I think the challenge would be doing that transition. So if the thought is, let's extend it for a few more months, then the time when these businesses are going to be transitioning to their own commercial service, it's going to be right in the season. And that's going to be more challenging with
Or we
having.
could push it to, what if we pushed it to October?
Correct. I
And
mean,
then I guess I'm thinking of more from the perspective of the vendor. It might be that the vendor might see this as a way to get the businesses, hey, we'll be working for them for 6 months, under the city, and then most likely they'll pick up the contract because they'll see how great we are.
so I think the contract would then be structured in a way that, starting in February, the city enters into a contract with a new vendor. They would be servicing every business that we currently service and have been servicing. And then maybe X number of months after, the scope of services would be reduced to just the condos and transition all businesses out at that point. Would that be?
Well, yeah, and I guess I don't feel like we need to continue paying for the large businesses. So I mean, it's a matter of how to, are we basically saying we're gonna take on another $200,000 of water this year is what it really boils down to. Personally, I don't think we need to do that, but I think if we went to February and we line up the contract, says we're paying for it until this one expires, but you're on for the new ones, that's 6 or 7 months from, 6 months from now. I think that should be ample time to arrange a garbage.
I would have a
service,
concern about treating businesses
I agree.
differently because.
It's either all or nothing.
Correct. I think we could have a challenge from that, if we just do Front Beach and not, the boathouse or the
Right.
marina.
No, I
Yeah,
agree with
that
that.
gets too,
I mean, I know Donnie has an opinion. I'd like to hear it.
Donnie never has an opinion.
Well, if you could just bear with me for a minute, I think it's, in my opinion, it's important to get a little historical perspective of how this operation started. As I know it, the city had a commercial operation in existence. Joe Washington was the hauler for all commercial. And as the houses and things got taller, the Public Works Director, both my predecessor and myself, contracted and added dumpsters to prevent overtime from staff rather than hiring staff. So that's kind of how the island grew. For instance, the county park, we had 16 cans, single-family cans in that corral. And a decision was made by my predecessor to put the dumpster in there at 67 cents or whatever it was. In talking with the county, and there were some other things that got, the Christmas tree and the Santa Claus, and then they paid the user fee. So we took out the cans, but it was a savings of staff, is why that was done. And then as I came on board, as the island grew, Mariners Walk on the right, I would take the single family, of which they were all, the condominiums had single family, 70, 80 cans per condominium complex, Seagrove, and I started transitioning to prevent overtime, number one, or additional staff and additional apparatus. So that's how your commercial dumpster operation has evolved. The number of entities that are on that contract is all fluid, and it's based on a season. So as we go into the off-season, we decrease the number of times those cans are serviced. And as the season gets closer to Memorial Day, those entities are calling me saying, I got to have an increase. I'm overflowing. And so it's always fluid that we go up and down during the year. In the summer months, historically, you will see a little bit more of the service than in the winter months.
So you're still coordinating, even though another.
Everything has to come through the Public Works Department.
Okay. Even though it's a
They
separate.
do not
company.
call Carolina Waste, each entity, they can call all they want, but until it goes through the Public Works, because we pay for it,
It's our
that
contract.
service.
It's
I
our,
see.
They do understand that if they go up in the service, their user fee at the end of the year also goes up, and I have to explain that to those individuals and property managers and so forth. But from a historical perspective, just so you know, that's kind of how all of that happened. Policy change, that's what y'all do. It's my job to give you the historical perspective of how we got there. Now, I can give you opinions, but I'll choose not to do that.
I think it'd be important.
I do too,
If
Donnie.
you would choose to do it, because
I-
you're the one that's on the ground every day.
I'm with you, Blair. I think.
All
we
right,
should-
so I will. I would certainly do some sort of hybrid with what you were talking about, how you get there, I don't know, with especially like the Boardwalk Inn. I mean, I think that's simple, and yes, you're calling out one over the others, but I think, the post office and those things are easily just eliminate them. And it's not the same realm as your restaurants, which is I've always been told, and I'm not in the business, but their margin is very small. And so that's why you see restaurants all over the place close.
Turning over, yeah.
And so I would be an advocate to do whatever I could for my restaurant business because, and, you know, when you peel the onion back on a lot of other local municipalities, there are providing services that those restaurants don't pay a user fee or the service. They have dedicated routes, but it's cheaper for the Isle of Palms to subcontract it out with commercial than to have a route dedicated to carts. And I'll leave it at that, but I just know that the margins on your restaurants are small and they run on a fine line, and I would hate to see the loss of businesses, which loses your hospitality taxes based on, they just can't make it.
Yeah, I comment on that. We found that most restaurants, and this may be most businesses, but I know most restaurants don't really know what they're paying for today. So their county usage fee, they would say things like, well, I write a check every month or every quarter. And so to Donnie's point, those businesses were established after, there was a commercial operation on Isle of Palms. So they don't know any different. The fact that this isn't done in other cities or municipalities, they don't know any different. Now, they do get the benefits of being in business on Isle of Palms, whatever that means to them. So I think, back to this communication piece, it will be important, not that we tell the history, but that we, help them understand current state, you're paying for this, and here's why. Future state, you'll be paying for this, and, this is what that looks like. Seems simple to, those of us that are close to it and process and all that, but I think to most of the business owners, they really just know they write a check, but they're not sure
So
what it's for.
to that, and this is something that I didn't realize until recently. So we are paying for the company to place the dumpsters there and to pick up the dumpster and drive it to the dump. That is what the city is paying for. The business owners are currently paying the user fee from the dump. Correct.
Only on the
that's-
compactor.
And that is paid directly to Charleston County. The
So that's
city,
separate from the company that's hauling it.
yes, ma'am.
That part is not going to change, or is it?
No,
Okay, so we get this new contract, it's, $250 per, what is it, is it per cubic yard? Is that-
per yard.
Per yard. So we get this new contract, $250 per cubic yard, then that is plus the user fee from Charleston County, because those are separate payments, correct?
The-
So there's not any haulers that pay the user fee?
No. The hauler will provide to Charleston County the tonnage that they collected for each particular business. So basically, the same schedule they provide to Charleston County, and that's where Charleston County uses their formula per tonnage as well, and then sends a bill directly to the business based on their usage. So if their collection grows and the generation of trash grows, their user fee will grow because it's based on tonnage collected. The city receives the user fee for the municipal compactor because it's our compactor that we make available to businesses. So every year, the city takes that bill from the county, we pay it, we take that bill from the county, and then using a historical formula based on use, we split that cost of the user fee between the businesses that use it. Historically, the city takes out about $2,000 from the user fee that we pay. And the reason the city has been paying about $2,000 from the user fee to the county is in recognition that even though the compactor has a lock and a gate, we have caught people dumping, dumping on top of the, dumping in the compactor that shouldn't be. We've prosecuted people who did illegal dumping. But in recognition that, there may be some public use, we pay $2,000 of that user fee. But it is, every business pays for that directly to the county, not to the city.
Okay.
So Donnie, how would you handle the big rental houses?
That's not a question I'm going to answer.
Okay.
That's above my pay grade. That's for policy setters.
I mean, I think using your same argument and the reason why you have sort of tried to streamline the public works operation in the condominiums and, within, mostly in Waldoons, because of, lack of efficiency, I think the same could be argued with
Sure.
properties that have 16, 20 cans. I mean, that it's all about how long does it take to our current garbage operation that's in-house to collect that.
But then I don't know that we want dumpsters in neighborhoods.
So historically, though,
No.
as long as it didn't incur overtime, and I could do it, even in the condos, then the public works staff did it. We serviced those condominiums. And when that point in time came, that, okay, it's getting tight, I need to evaluate and contract out for Seagrove and so forth. And so as long as we could do it without overtime, I was willing to have my staff do it
Right.
for years and years. And it became somewhat of a struggle, but we didn't incur overtime. And that was the key, is to keep costs down, because there is a cost associated with, even though it was 67 cents, there's still a cost. And when you're dealing with public dollars, you want to be diligent with how you do things.
And then houses, most residents have up to 2 trash and 2 recycle, or 1 of each?
I don't like the term most, but
Okay.
We
there
provide
are-
one.
Yeah, there are single-family homes that have 3 and 4 cans. That is just
But when you say
one
3,
family.
is that 3 or 4 trash cans, or does that
Correct.
are you including the recycle?
3 or 4 city-owned
Trash cans.
green garbage cans and multiple recycle.
Okay, thank you.
I go back to the compactor for just a minute, and if we're talking about considering transition, of the 10 business owners that are at Front Beach that are utilizing the compactor, from a transition standpoint, I don't believe that it would be 10 individuals. Isn't it sort of 3 or 4 owners that kind of own the 10 businesses that would be being able to maybe aggregate their businesses as far as, contracting with somebody else? It's not like it's 10 small. There are some smaller ones in there, but don't we have would it be a few that have to go out and basically contract? And it's not 10 individual contracts.
I believe some of the several businesses that utilize the compactor are owned by the same individual.
Yeah.
But that's a yes.
I agree,
Okay,
with the exception of each of those businesses, I would assume would be their own LLC or whatever.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would say for the compactor, because it is city-owned and the city provided space in its municipal law to accommodate a compactor for these businesses that don't have the space to either put cans or dumpsters, that they be included in the city's contract. If the decision is made to transition all commercial outside of the city's contract, because of that unique situation, we would include them, and we would just bill them the same way we bill the
You
user.
you split the 1,700 additional.
We're already billing them.
Right.
We're already
So
billing them,
it wouldn't be a huge
Yeah.
correct.
cumbersome change.
And
It's
the 1,700 gets split to 10, or some allocation over the 10
Correct.
ways. So it's
Correct.
170 per month.
Correct.
But some pay more.
We would use the same formula we used to divide the user
That
fee, we
makes
just
sense.
add that. because they really have they don't have any other choice.
So are we really talking now about what's a reasonable transition period? Is it 6 months? Is it, is that kind of where we're starting to coalesce here, or just asking the question?
One quick question on County Park. We're going to charge them too, right? Or they do their own thing?
Yes, they are, that's.
I know we currently have been doing it, but I mean, they're a business as well. I don't see that we should give the county a free ride.
They're in here too, I think.
Yeah, they're in here as commercial.
Okay.
They'd be treated as
Just
commercial.
making sure that it's the same
Yeah,
budget.
they're commercial,
Same as like
post
in the
office.
post office,
Yeah, they're in
which
here
isn't
too.
technically commercial, like, but any of these,
Okay.
we don't need to be paying for the United States government's trash. I think we're already paying that in our taxes somewhere.
So so just to maybe consolidate a little bit, and the conversation is, do we want to extend the current service past February to give businesses a longer transition period?
We're
Or
talking through February. Originally, we were talking.
through February?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're under contract through February. There was also some conversation about splitting or treating restaurants differently than other commercial entities.
I have concerns about that. I feel like that's just gonna be, for lack of a better term, too confusing, too unfair, what, I mean, how do you explain to one small business that because you don't serve food, or, it just, that to me gets to be too personal, awkward, whatever.
Well, I think from a legal
And from a legal
perspective, I
perspective,
think
it's
it would be a
probably-
challenge to
yeah.
the
I mean,
city.
the other side, from a practical perspective, though, is large corporations can probably handle their own trash costs. That's, yeah.
But I mean, I guess I'm sympathetic to Rod's concerns, and then also the timing of it. And, I don't like, I'd rather not be paying past February, but if it is going to be a big help to these businesses to go longer, I mean, I don't know, maybe we pay 50% going until October or September. I mean, I don't know. I'm just,
Would it be easier to line it up with a fiscal year, to do it on a June kind of a thing?
Certainly we can. I think that the challenge would be
In the middle of
transitioning
the
right
season.
in July. The committee
It's
has,
10, I mean, this is that's 11 months away. I mean, I think we could transition the service in 11 months, but that's just me.
I mean, I'm not saying, I think it would be possible, but 4th of July, it's already
it seems like.
a very, very challenging time. And what would you say?
I would not go for anything in the summer months. That transition's gonna be a bear in and of itself, because the current contractor, they're gonna pull out come February 1st or March 1st in 3 days, and then the new contractor has got to be in place. So it's gonna be logistically, there's gonna be
Challenge,
Oh,
some
yeah.
snafus no matter what.
Obviously, yeah, and people
I
are
mean,
gonna be calling you.
Reality is,
Yeah, I think.
it is what it is.
Yeah,
but-
these businesses aren't going to all transition on the same day. I would think they're going to go.
No, it'll take 3 to 5 days to transition from one vendor to the other.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I've already looked into the staging of the new dumpsters, where they would be placed, how they could be efficiently deployed as the others are being taken away. But
Where will the money come from? From our budget, just curious, if we were to carry it going forward. I don't think we budgeted 275 in our budget this year, did we?
No, we did
Okay.
not. We budgeted 70, which is what we historically paid. The change, the increase in fee came after the city finalized and approved the budget.
So back to, where will the money come from? Or
Well, the city's already going to be over budget
through February?
through February. It'll have to be absorbed with a hospitality tax or a combination of hospitality and accommodation tax.
Does that mean we don't do something else? Just
No, that means we probably tap into fund balance to pay for that expense.
Okay.
Or if our revenues exceed the forecast budget, we budget pretty conservatively. I don't think that, based on our projections, I don't think that we will generate, I don't anticipate us generating way above what we budgeted. We'll probably be higher, but not.
Hospitality seems like it's going okay. ATAX seems like it's softening up.
Correct. We're 10 to 12% ahead of last year in the hospitality tax and about the same behind last year in accommodations.
Okay.
And that was, if I may, I think that there's been some question about the hospitality tax and what it should or not, what should it be used to pay for? And I figured it would be helpful to
Pays
go.
for a lot of things, doesn't it?
And just, I'm not going to go regurgitate the entire statute, but it's regulated by statute, what the city can use to pay with hospitality tax fund. It's section 61730. Tourism-related buildings, civic centers, aquariums, tourism-related cultural and recreational historic facilities, beach access and renourishment, roads, advertisement and promotion related to tourism development, water and sewer infrastructure, flooding and drainage infrastructure. For communities that generate over $900,000 in accommodation taxes, the city is able to fund police, fire protection, emergency medical services, and emergency preparedness as well, so that because we go over that threshold, we're able to use it for tourism-related operations that impact tourism. So we are bound by the state statute in how we can use these funds.
Okay, so if sounds like we're kind of leaning October-ish, is that that's the preferred?
I don't know, what's the thoughts from,
Should we make a recommendation to go to October 1st, or?
I don't know yet. For me, but I think we have to treat all businesses equally, and we're not doing that right now with what we're doing, because we do have the rental businesses, and maybe we need to incorporate into this, you can't have more than 2 cans or 3 cans or whatever it is, and if you do more than that, there's a charge. We need to figure what that charge is and then charge those people as part of their business license. But we have to do it island-wide and treat everybody equally. I don't think we can pick, and I agree with you about trying to help small businesses, Donnie, I do, but from the government's perspective, we got to treat everybody the same.
Blair, would you be open to, since this is tied directly to a cost increase generated by a contract that's gone up, that has a sunset date in February, we keep that issue on the table, maybe we address it on a different.
I think we got to do it all at the same time, because we're changing policy.
Well, it's not going to impact our budget, it's not going to impact our policy towards, it's not changing their policy.
well,
It's,
I'm thinking of it in terms of looking at this more holistically, and Scott's asking, how are we gonna pay for this? And maybe that's how we're gonna pay for this.
Yeah.
Is that
But can we implement it?
if we make a decision that says that we are going to, I would accept the $2.50 contract starting in February. So that, first of all, we're going from $375 to $250, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be some cost savings. And then tie that in with, and then we will pay for it through October, or I don't know, that's end of October, hurricane season's over by then. The world kind of settles down out here. And then at that point, that both all of the businesses go to a equal footing of paying for trash removal. And, because we already have, if you're a business and you can use just your 2 cans, then you're good. And if you're a rental and you can use your 2 cans, you're good. And if you're using more than that, then you're gonna pay.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not averse to that, I'm just thinking if we think about the plumbing to actually implement that, we have to either put RFIDs on the trash cans or tie them to the rental licenses. I'm not averse to the topic at all. From an implementation standpoint with a 30-day runway, can we make a policy? I mean, maybe we can make the policy change and then we just have a different
Yeah,
implementation.
I think we have to do a policy and fix it all at one time. And then you can implement it however, and the money is a little bit different issue. But that gives everybody a lead time to figure out what you're gonna do.
So on that second piece of, dealing with properties that have more than 2 cans, whether they're rental or not, we would need to do a little bit of research to identify how many there are, the process by which they could be levied an additional fee, how to do that. I mean, I think communities do it through the property tax. So I think there's a little bit of homework that we would need to do, and we can bring more information to the committee if you all want to explore that further. I think while from a policy perspective, it makes sense to talk about and establish policy on both ends, this piece is different, kind of goes through differently because we have a contract that we need to execute. I guess we would have to get agreement from the contractor to understand if we wanted to enter into a contract in February, and then as of October, the scope would be reduced to just condominiums and what the changes would be. We can get that answered.
But also, would it be possible to talk, and I mean, obviously, you're probably not gonna get every single business to agree to it, but if the business, if we went to this new contractor and said, we're gonna have this contract with you for all of the dumpsters on the island until October, but then also, here's the contact information for the businesses that you're going to be servicing in October, and, hopefully you can get them to stay with you. I mean, if they all were in it, I mean, I would assume that they're gonna get a better rate if they do that. And so, I feel like that could be, I mean, obviously the logistics of that might be a little bit challenging, but.
Well, I think it would give us more time to make sure that businesses understand what their options are. We think that the same vendor that would continue to service the cities, the scope that we're going to continue to service, they're already going to be in our community. So chances are they will be offering the same rate to businesses, which would be good. I think they would benefit from a lower bid. But it would be a matter of communicating to businesses. Here's the city's contractor. They'll be here. Here's how you get in contact with them, and they would be familiar with the operational by that time, if that's what we end up doing.
With the other piece on the residential, I think the easy way to tag that is if you have a business license. So if you have a short-term rental license, whatever the number is, I don't know, but say it's 2 cans you get, okay, you get those. But if you have more than 2 cans, you got to pay for it.
What about a home that doesn't have a rental license that has 5 or 6?
If they're residents, they're residents. I think that's a different can of worms, because now we're treating residents differently. But if you have a business license, that's a hook to say everybody that has a business license gets treated the same way.
Would it be worthwhile to see what other communities, how they handle it, and from like I said, from a plumbing perspective, do you distinguish between a residence that has 2 cans or 10 cans? I mean, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
Bless it
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But I think that's the hook, is the business license.
Yeah.
That's easy.
I guess, and I know we're not trying to solve this now, but would you just tack on to everybody's business license if they have a short-term rental license, or only those that have more than X number of
I
cans?
think you get 2 cans, and this is something that Donnie's group can give us an answer to ultimately. But, maybe it's based on square footage. Maybe it's based on activity from the year prior. I don't know how you base it, but there's got to be a way to base it based upon one of those.
I think the easiest way would be just number of cans.
A lot of communities charge for, every community I've lived in pretty much has a trash bill. And it's based on some formula or something.
Yeah.
You have Robert, and I'm sure you have Donnie, but I mean, maybe we can find out what would be the best way to be able to do that.
So just to clarify, the city supplies 1 can per residence, whether that residence turns into a
Rental and
rental or not, and then any additional cans they pay for.
they pay for the can.
The
They
cans.
just buy the can, but they
right.
don't pay
Correct.
for them.
It's like $100,
Correct.
right?
But then you've also
$75.
got to recycle. And you can, if you got 10 cans, you probably got 10 recycled.
But we're not paying for recycling, and you can and that's another thing that, and that's where I keep going back to, is that in some ways, maybe, hopefully, this will encourage recycling, because I have 3 recycling bins, and you can recycle as much as you want, and
There's
they
no-
don't charge you for it.
Well, that's going to, you just got to be careful with that, because then people won't put trash in the recycling.
Well, that's, yeah, I mean, but that's the county's problem, no. No, but I mean, you do not, we don't pay any sort of, do we?
I think each
For
person pays their property tax bill. The portion that goes to Charleston County includes,
But like businesses don't pay extra for recycling, do they? Or do they?
No.
No.
That's a service provided. Each home pays, I don't know, $128 or $135 on your tax bill for the use of the county landfill. So if you look on your property tax bill every year, you'll see it broke down.
So that's our user fee.
That's your user fee per house.
so I think, yeah, so recycling, you pay a flat rate, it's not based on volume.
And if you take your glass to the glass recycling, it is free.
That too.
And that's a lot of tonnage because it's heavy.
Can I attempt to make a motion then for the consideration, or see what?
So
think-
what are we motioning?
Make a motion that the city will adopt the new trash contract through, and we're going through February, but that the city will absorb the current costs as they are today for the businesses and for the condos that we're picking up for the bulk containers through, I think the thought is October 30th to get us through both the commercial season and the hurricane season. And then the cost will then transition for the commercial entities as outlined in the attachments to the commercial entities. They will be responsible for the cost. And on the bulk container, the city will, the business will be responsible, but the city will continue to bill to the 10 entities as is today on the compactor. It's a long motion. Just so we're clear though. But in the same manner, but they will then also be responsible for the trash in the compactor.
And that we will do our homework to figure out the next step of, no.
Yeah, I think vote on this motion, and this, since there's some research, we'll bring back to the committee. At that time, you can make a motion with some direction on
The only
that.
thing I'm gonna change about yours is just making it October 31st, since it's the end of the month.
Oh, the October 30th would be, did I say October 30th? Yeah,
I said
31st.
30 days.
So we want a second.
Ends in an R, yeah.
Second.
Ends in a R.
All in favor?
Aye.
And
And the next part is for them to do homework to bring back to you.
You want to make the motion?
Regarding trash.
so, and yeah, I think that's not a motion, that's just a direction to staff to
Correct.
get us information so that we can discuss that and hopefully tie this all up in a little bow. Good?
Good.
All right.
Only took an
No-
hour.
Took less than an
Talking trash
hour.
there, Blair. Talking trash.
Took less than an hour because we had other stuff first. All right, next is our discussion of island-wide beach monitoring and surveying.
All right, that contract that the city,
Thank you,
thank you,
Rod.
Rod.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rod.
The contract that the city has with CSC for the island-wide beach monitoring and surveying expires this year. So we put it out for bid. We issued a request for proposals for those services to be continued. We did change the scope slightly based on sort of what we've been living for the past couple of years with our erosion rate, particularly around the inlets. We enhanced the scope and asked for our vendor to give us a price to do semi-annual surveys. So right now, they do one survey, one report, one monitoring report every year. We would like that to be done twice a year, so that we can closely monitor any changes to the dynamic inlets. So that's how we wrote the request for proposals. Only one vendor responded, Coastal Science and Engineering. Not surprising, they have had, coastal engineers usually have a long history with their clients. And as you can see from their response to the request for proposals, they've been working with the city for about 40 years. They have more experience surveying and analyzing the South Carolina beach volume changes than any other entity. They have longstanding relationships with other communities such as Edisto Beach, the South Carolina Department of Park and Recreation and Tourism, Seabrook, Kiowa, and as obviously you all know, with the city of Isle of Palms. So the change, again, the change of this scope to what we have been doing for many, many years is just increasing the frequency by which we do surveys and reports of our beach. The cost is $106,000 a year, the way we wrote the scope, which is totally up to the city. But same as the last time we put it out for bid was a 5-year contract. So this would be a 5-year contract if the city decides to do 5 years. At 106, just for comparison purposes. So they'll be doing the same thing they do for about $60,000, just once a month. So about $40,000 more to do that same survey, that same report twice a year, so that we can keep a closer eye on particularly the erosional areas and the dynamic inlet zones. So that's what we have. We would like for the committee to make a recommendation and get a contract in place so that this year's report can be done by the beginning of next year.
So I know we've had a lot of talk about the increase in frequency. It's going to be another 200,000 over 5 years, which is, and it looks like it's, will this give us better decision-making capabilities? I guess, what will the return on the investment for the frequency?
I think it will, just the fact that we don't have to wait until the end of the year to understand any changes in the condition of the beach. It will allow us to make decisions much quicker when those volume changes change. So I think definitely it's going to be a huge improvement in having our finger in the pulse, or to the pulse.
What time of year are they doing this?
So they typically do it during this time, August, but they would be doing it in the spring and then in August and in the fall.
Okay, so we're gonna get like 6 months between the two?
I would think so.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right, because I think it's important to see the seasonal changes, because every spring, it takes away some sand and then it builds back up in the summer. And so you've got people whose hair's on fire because of what happened in the spring, and it'll be able to calm them down a little bit by going in the fall, and we'll look where we are
And
now.
we'll get some history over the
Yeah.
next 5 years, yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
The
I think they've, I think they've been putting a lot of time out here
Yeah.
in the last year or two,
They have been, and they're excellent to
They've
work
been- They
with.
have been, I know, I was gonna say, I feel like Stephen lives here. It's like every time
He
we.
probably does too.
Yeah.
After a storm, he's usually the first person that I see immediately on the island. You all have seen their commitment to the city over the past year when we've had these issues. So we have 100% trust in their capabilities and again, their commitment to the city.
I make a motion that we adopt the proposal, send it to council, with one caveat, that I get to ride on the boat one time.
Well,
I do feel like we should take a city council trip out there at some point.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Yours was a lot shorter than mine, Blair.
Yeah.
I was just longer.
I know.
Yeah.
We just do what
Madam
what
Chairman,
they said.
I've got one other just quick request. I don't know that it needs to be a motion or anything, but just request to the city. Can we just buy a hook to put this ring on and just screw it in the wood
Is that
right
what the
there?
problem is? I was wondering.
But if we just do that, then it's got a home.
So the contractor did, I think people play around the pier unfortunately, but we'll find a way to
'Cause
have that.
I've been out there, there wasn't.
I think we have 3 life rings.
Yeah, I mean,
Obviously,
this one
They're
has a
very,
hook.
very well
Yeah.
covered.
Currently, yeah, that one is
Has a hook, but
there.
if we can just buy a hook, I mean, it's
Yes.
probably
Yeah.
$10 hook, screw it in the wall and be
I got one in my garage. I can just go down there and put it up. if I want to.
No, it's okay. We'll do it. It had a hook on this side of the pier.
Yes, and yeah, somebody is.
I think Robert can take care of it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll take care of that.
Thank you, sir.
But yeah, 3 life rings there.
Yeah. And it's currently not even open, is it?
Not
I know
technically.
people
It is an attractive nuisance, though.
Yes.
Yes,
It's very attractive.
it is beautiful.
Any other business? Or-
All right. In that case, we have no new business, except for the life ring. Miscellaneous, next meeting date. Are we set for whatever that next Tuesday of September?
So the next Tuesday would be Tuesday, the 3rd. It's the day after Labor Day. We can have that meeting. We can meet there or any other time if people are gonna be out of town.
I'd suggest pushing it, because
I was gonna say, that's
I'll be
only like-
hungover and grumpy on the 3rd.
That's also only like a week away.
We can do the 10th in the morning.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Are we good with the 10th?
Sure.
10th?
Yes.
Does that work?
Yes.
Whatever you say.
We
We'll
gonna
be here.
We gonna be talking trash cans? More trash talking on the
I
10th?
think we're through with that.
Yes, for the next
on to
meeting, we
cans.
will be discussing next steps on the yard debris discussion that we had
Okay.
talked about. And then we'll bring additional information as requested by the committee on trash cans and business licenses and all that good stuff.
Awesome.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Off the record at 10:08.
Thank you, guys.
Not bad.